Let's go to the story that has been talked about quite a lot today. The U.S. claims that the giant Chinese balloon it shot down was spying on key military sites across America. Now, the U.S. Department of Defense confirmed its fighter jets brought down the balloon over the country's territory. China's foreign ministry is unhappy with this and says there was nothing nefarious about this particular balloon. Let's now speak to Senior Research Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogue, Thembisa Fakude. Thank you so much for your time this evening. This particular story is likely to result in tensions. Let's just start with, the explanations that have been given here. China saying there was nothing untoward here. The U.S. saying that they were being spied on. What do you make of this particular development?
Well, first of all, this balloon came into U.S. airspace, went out and came back again, which suggests that it was somehow, at least according to some observers, it was remotely controlled somewhere. Secondly, China refuses the allegations or dispute the allegation that this was a spy craft. They argue that this was one of the balloons gathering information on weather patterns and weather, which is something that commonly happens within countries around the world. So you've got those two narratives, but at the same time, Joe Biden was under pressure from the US to shoot down the balloon because it was a Chinese balloon and it was suspected of spying over certain military bases in the United States.
How easy will it be, though, for China to prove, as they claim, that this balloon was blown away by strong winds and it caused it to lose direction? How easy or difficult will it be for them to prove that this is actually the case?
Well, now it's blown. Now it has been blown up, so the debris is all over the place. They're saying it's spread to about 9 square miles. That's how big the debris is, or how big the balloon was. So we'll get to know very soon once they collect all of that. I think the equipment that was inside that balloon will tell us precisely, and information that was inside the balloon or collected by the balloon will tell us precisely what was it doing in the U.S. territory. But for now, we can only wait and see and try not to take sides between the United States and China.
And I mean, you look at these, these two nations, we've seen tensions before, which resulted in some strong action. How heightened could the tensions be given the responses that we've seen in the public domain from the two?
Well, Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, was supposed or due to travel to China, has since postponed the trip. So that tells you how serious this is going to be. But at the same time, China is losing the propaganda war, because now China is an aggressor. This was Chinese balloon, for whatever reason, found in unfamiliar territory of the United States airspace. So situation is likely to get worse. But having said that, China also identifies or spots these kind of balloons now and then in its own territory. And some people have argued that this might just be a pretext for China to begin shooting down all of those balloons as well.
So could we then see that the U.S. in this case taking it up a notch to justify some of its actions when it comes to some of the businesses, that China, of course, has in its own country? Could we see things being ramped up on that note?
Well, the U.S. from now on, I don't think we're going to be hearing about this balloon for a very long time to come, and it's going to try and emphasize the new aggressor, which is China. So it justifies Joe Biden's and the U.S. decision, particularly on certain businesses. We know that last week, Joe Biden halted all the exports on Huawei, which is the technology company owned by China. The U.S. has always also been very vocal in terms of stopping the business of TikTok, which is a social media giant owned by China. So U.S. is trying very hard to keep China away from reaching the same level of success in terms of business and technology as it has done. And I think these kind of incidences gives that pretext for the U.S. to continue cracking down on China's business expansion.
And China is not going to take this one lying down, though. What is your reading there?
Well, China's not going to take it lying down. As I've said earlier on, China does also spot certain foreign flying objects in its airspace now and then. And all along, it's been giving, to some extent, benefit of a doubt. But I think what's going to be happening now, we'll see more and more of those flying objects also being targeted by China, which some people are saying the reason why this balloon found itself in US space, it was basically to trigger that reaction so that China can start also acting on these flying sources, which are increasingly found on airspaces of China.
If it turns out, as you and I both understand that investigations are underway, whatever's found out then will potentially be in the public domain to tell us what exactly this, balloon was actually doing. So could it then be found that, it was responsible for some nefarious activity? Can the U.S. use this to try and use it as leverage or get more concessions from China?
Yes, it's certainly going to use this for more concessions either way, even if it finds that the purpose of that balloon was for civilian purposes and it was really to gather information on weather patterns. U.S. is still going to use this to gain more concessions of China. It will use this as a leverage. But importantly, it places China in a much, much more difficult position henceforth. China is an aggressor, and this is what China has been trying to avoid all along, and I think the U.S. is going to take this and use it to its own advantage moving forward.
And I suppose it might even feature then, given how big it is, it might make it into the State of the Union when President Joe Biden delivers it.
Well, that's what many people are saying. The timing is a bit suspect, isn't it? That Tuesday morning, going to have President Joe Biden delivering his State of the Union address, and at the same time we have this balloon saga emerging, and others are saying it's convenient and it's going to bring a much more emboldened Joe Biden to the State of the Union, and is going to use this to demonstrate his prowess in terms of dealing with China. So it came at the right time. The fact that this has been lingering within the U.S. space for the past 8 days, or it was detected, I think, on Monday, but somehow they decided not to shoot it down because of fearing that the debris might really harm the civilians. They waited until it reached the waters before it was shot down. So Joe Biden is certainly going to use this to his own advantage on Tuesday.
Hi, let's see then what happens with this one. It's really going to be the story that is going to dominate international headlines as well. That is Senior Research Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues, Thembisa Fakude. Thank you so much for your time.